Hi everyone, happy Victober to you. I don't know if you've seen, but I have put up um, Parsons Holiday by Elizabeth Gaskell, which it's a very cool way that I found this story. Parsons Holiday is a series of letters to the editor that Elizabeth Gaskell wrote into the Pall Mall Gazette as this parson who was really worn out by his congregation and was trying to find a isolated place to go on vacation, but had been unsuccessful. And this was referenced in Jenny Huglow's biography of Elizabeth Gaskell. Elizabeth Gaskell, A Habit of Stories is the name of it. I had looked for this story for years and had not been able to find it. And finally, I just used this free trial on newspapers.com and I found the story in there. So I read it aloud so more of the world could know this story because it is so hard to access. Hopefully, eventually, a press will print out a little pamphlet of it because it's just a little gem. But while I was on there, I thought, you know what? Why don't I get my money's worth out of this free trial? And I have printed out several newspaper clippings from talking about when Queen Victoria had died, kind of the procedures. And I just thought other Victorian nerds would find it interesting. Some of it's so moving too. So this is from The Guardian, Monday, February 4th, 1901. On Saturday, the public part of the funeral of Queen Victoria ended with a procession across London and the laying of the dead Queen's body in the penultimate resting place in St. George's Chapel at Windsor. Everywhere, the bearing of the great crowds who watched the procession corresponded accurately with the place that Queen Victoria holds in the minds of our people. They will now return to their everyday life and work, and these in time will soften the present, like other regrets, from an instant pang of loss into recollections charged with a sense of the good fortune which gave us for so long the help that at some time we had to lose. Meanwhile, we may be sure that public admiration and regret will endeavor strenuously to leave permanent expressions and records of themselves in memorials of many kinds to the dead Queen. One of the first and strongest of these impulses in many quarters will be towards the erection of memorial statues. But to render such memorials on a large scale and in large numbers really great and memorable, it is not enough that there should be the highest merit in those to whose honor they are raised and the warmest recognition of it in the midst of those who erect them. There must also be a large number of sculptors of such power as always rare is only possessed by 3 or 4 living Englishmen. There is thus placed a natural and impassable limit, not indeed to the commemoration of the Queen's reign by means of sculptured monuments, but to its worthy and beautiful commemoration. But there are other ways open to those who wish to honor her memory. She had taken so prominent a part in many works of charity and of voluntarily exerted public spirit, and her own estimate of the relative importance of such endeavors was accordingly so well known that private liberality ought to have little difficulty in determining the form that should be taken by those best of memorials at which aim doing the living the good that would have been wished them by the dead. We who cannot give immortality to those we love can yet give a measure of immortality to the fruit of fine impulses that stirred them while they lived, and can, in a sense, rescue from the death of the body that part of them which helped the sick or took thought for the unprotected. So you can tell a very loyal subject writing in The Guardian there. Then this is from The Times, and Thursday, January 24th, 1901, and it is harder to read. I'm going to do my best. Hopefully I'm able to see it. Then there was nothing to be done except to ascertain as nearly as possible what were the plans for the future and what were the condition of things at Osborne. And first of the funeral. Definite settlement at present there is none. But it may be taken for certain that the funeral will eventually, but not for a considerable time, be at Windsor, and that it will be a full military funeral, the body of the Queen being laid to rest near that of the Prince Consort. At present it lies in the bedchamber, where it has been viewed by the household and servants. But it is to be removed to the dining room, either tomorrow or next day, when suitable preparations have been made, and the dining room has become a chapelle ardente. From a trustworthy source, but not from any official of the household, I learned that the face wears an expression of perfect peace and calm, that the hands are crossed, with the left uppermost showing the wedding ring, that there are a few simple flowers, snowdrops, and the like, on the bed, that 2 of the Indian servants and the dresser keep watch. From the same source, it's hard to read this next part. Happened to be in command. The official announcement of the Queen's death was made this morning. But as to plans generally, as to what will be permitted and what will be forbidden, there is a general vagueness and uncertainty due to the fact that until the king and the Lord Chamberlain come back, the center of authority is absent. So that would be really just this time of flux. It would be a stressful time. And later on in this piece, it says, I was driving up the York Avenue to Osborne in obedience to the summons, and in ignorance of the calamity which had fallen the nation, when I appraised of it in a very shocking and unprecedented way. Loud shouts were heard in the distance. Then came a crowd of carriages at the gallop, of bicycles careening down the hill at a breakneck speed, of runners howling "Queen dead" at the top of their voices. The sound suggested a babel of cries at a fox hunt rather than the very solemn occasion which had called them forth. And it has to be confessed, with shame, that they were emitted by persons connected with the press, although not, of course, with, say, London paper of long standing. They were as outraged and taken in taken in combination with a fictitious and disgraceful interview with the Queen's physician, which has caused much pain and annoyance. They contributed a real danger to the better class of journalism, and through it to the public. How can journalists be expected to be treated with consideration when, on an occasion so mournful, they behave in a manner so horribly contrary to common decency? Individual cases of misconduct one has seen before, but this yelling stampede established a record in bad taste and in inhumanity. I am told there was whooping at the gates themselves, but that is hearsay, and the evidence of my own eyes and ears are enough and to spare. Yeah, the press being really excited about a tragic event, bringing lots of sales to their newspaper, does not surprise me at all. Then we have a later one from The Guardian. This is from Saturday, January 26, 1901. Through the Streets, Proclamation at New Cross is the name of this. After an interval which gave the people time to disperse, the Lord Mayor with his mace bearer and other officials and with members of the corporation and invited citizens drove to New Cross, where also Queen Victoria had been proclaimed at the time of her accession. There were at least 50 carriages, all of them filled. The departure was made from the Cooper Street entrance. Thence the journey was made through Princess Street, Cross Street, Market Street, High Street, and Shude Hill, and on to the Cross and Oldham Road. The crowds were immense in Cross Street and Market Street. While the procession was viewed with interest, it seemed to be the general feeling that it would be in bad taste to demonstrate in any other way than in showing by their presence that they welcomed the accession to the throne of the King, Edward VII. There was no cheering, for no one was prepared to cheer while yet the nation is in mourning for the Queen. The restraint was admirable. At New Cross, the Lord Mayor ascended a platform which had been built. An immense crowd of people was around him. All Ancoats seemed to have sent out its population. The windows of those warehouses around the cross were filled with faces. A feature of the gathering was the presence of nearly 200 boys from the Day Industrial School and Mill Street Ancoats. The ceremony was almost exactly the same as that which had taken place at the town hall. The Lord Mayor, with the race bearer on his right, read the proclamation. The cornet sounded, and the band of the police played "God Save the King," and the little children from the school sang the anthem. Only it was noticeable, here as elsewhere, that after the 60-odd years during which people have accustomed themselves to the singing of "God Save the Queen," it was found strange and difficult to substitute the word "king." And this is from The Guardian, Wednesday, January 23rd, 1901. The news that the King, and the name of this is Public Emotion. The news that the Queen was dead was received in Manchester soon after 7 o'clock last night. There was no outward demonstration in correspondence with the great event. There had long been a profound fear that the Queen might die, and everybody was sadly prepared for death. For days past the truth has been known, and one even hoped that the story of the passing away would not be too far prolonged, the end of the great Victorian reign being inevitable. When the evening papers sent forth their reports stating that the Queen was dead, there was great emotion among the people in the streets. The theaters and the music balls sent away their crowds. There was no entertainment in the city that night. Nobody wanted entertainment of any sort whatever. The overture had begun. The start had been made with a play, with a pantomime, and with a sketch. Then, when there came the news, at once the performance in every place was over. The Dead March was played, and the people streamed into the streets. I'm going to try to find the Dead March, and I'll link it down below if I'm able to find it. There was no thought, no wish on their part that the entertainment should be continued. The long and great Victorian era had ended. That was the beginning and the end of the thoughts of everybody. Soon the streets of Manchester and Salford were crowded. There was deep grief among men and women at the death of our aged sovereign. An official telegram which covered the news of the death of the Queen was received at the town hall from the Lord Mayor of London at 8 o'clock last night. It was dated from Lombard Street and ran to the Chief Constable, Manchester. Her Majesty died this evening, 6:30. The news had, of course, then been generally known in the city for a long time, and on the instruction of the Lord Mayor of Manchester, unruffled peals had rung on the bells in the tower of the town hall. Many people assembled in Albert Square, and a very large number only disappeared after the tolling had ended and returned to their homes. At the cathedral and also at the Royal Exchange, there was the same solemn tolling. When at various churches the news was received in the course of the night, their bells were also rung. As regards the Manchester Royal Exchange, the directors have intimated to the subscribers that to an extent that may be possible, they should today reduce or cancel their business operations. Can you imagine getting to hear all the bells being rung throughout the city? At the Reform Club in King Street and at the Conservative Club in Cross Street, blinds were drawn last night. Practically all public meetings in Manchester and social and other engagements have been cancelled. At a meeting of the members of the St. George's Ward Reform Club held last night, the following resolution was adopted on the motion of Mr. Gibson. This meeting of Liberals of St. George's Ward hereby tender their heartfelt sympathy with the members of the royal family at the death of the much-beloved Queen, and further express their deep sense of the irreparable love the nation has sustained. The following resolution was passed last night by the Executive Committee to the South Manchester Liberal Association on the motion of the chairmans. This meeting deplores the death of our gracious sovereign Queen Victoria, and by her womanly goodness, sterling character, and faithful adherence to the best good of the nation, has endeared herself to all her people, and will be held in the affectionate regard and memory of all who have been privileged to live under her wise and constitutional rule. It hopes that her successor may have a prosperous and happy reign, and that inspired by the memory and example of the noble life now ended, he will aid his people to advance towards further happiness and contentment. And it goes into different neighborhoods and cities, and this says Salford. The news reached Salford just as large numbers of people were assembling at the theaters and other places of entertainment. And in all cases, the projected performances were abandoned. The Regent Theatre in Cross Lane, the Prince of Wales in West Liverpool Street, and the Victoria Theatre, Broughton, dismissed their audiences as soon as they received official information of the Queen's death. It just makes it feel really real. Can you imagine you were going to a show, you sit down, and all of a sudden someone comes out and says, the Queen has died, and they cancel the show, and you walk home thinking that just pondering the fact that the Queen has died. At the town hall, the mayor gave instructions for flags to be placed half-mast on all the public buildings under the central control of the corporation. A statutory meeting of the council has been called for today. At the Royal Technical Institute, Peel Park, a great many students assembled for their usual evening classes. But at the request of the principal, Mr. Wilson, they all, or as many in the room would hold, gathered in the chemistry lecture room. Principal Wilson, addressing the students, said, "Perhaps you may be aware of my reason for calling you together this evening. At 7 o'clock, official information reached me that Her Most Gracious Majesty the Queen had died at 6:30. It is unusual under such circumstances as these to show our sympathy with those in high places who here so often show their sympathy with the nation at large when a great calamity has overtaken it. It is unnecessary for me to say anything about our revered Queen. Our loss is not merely the nation's loss, it is the world's loss. And I am aware all of our sympathies." It got cut off at the top of there. So he gives a really long speech. Then it says Sheffield, the early bulletins had prepared the Sheffield people for the worst, but it was nonetheless a shock when the news came that the Queen had passed away. It was in 1837 that she visited the the city to open the new town hall. And it was well known that she highly appreciated the welcome given to her. The bells in the parish church tower were tolled, and a large number of the tradesmen closed their premises. The evening paper specials were eagerly bought up, and crowds of people gathered in thoroughfares. The Queen has 3 times passed through Eccles, in 1851 and 1857, on her journeys to and from Worsley Hall to Manchester, and on her visit to the Salford docks. She passed by rail through Eccles on her journey to Scotland. Letters of condolence are being sent from the liberal clubs to the royal family. And then Worsley, it says flags are hoisted half-mast at Lord Ellesmere's residence, Worsley Hall, and the Bridgewater trustees walked in offices. The village of Worsley for nearly 100 years was the headquarters of the Bridgewater trustees, has been singularly favored with royal visits. And it talks about all the times that she came to visit in Worsley. At the theaters in Manchester, it says all the places of amusement in Manchester were closed for the evening immediately upon the arrival of the news. The pantomime performances at the theater had actually begun before the intelligence became known. But in no instance does there appear to have been a moment's hesitation to the proper course to adopt. So it's wanting to make sure these theaters were respectably observing the protocol that was supposed to happen. I hope you enjoyed getting to hear those, readings from the newspapers about the time that Queen Victoria died. I think sometimes when we think about people from the past, they can just seem so distant and different from us. But getting to see that and getting to hear that about the press, just saying Queen dead, to sell newspapers is just makes it feel all the more real. I hope you enjoyed that kind of random video, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye.